Yeah, guys, I'm audible.
Yes, looks.
Yes, yes, you are.
Yeah, hello,
Yes,
hi everyone.
yes. Hi.
So, shall we?
Yeah.
All right. So, hope you all aware we are on our Python module, right? So, let's continue with the Python concepts, and then we'll move on to the next module. Hmm? Let me share my screen. Just a sec. All right. So, before we move on to the next topic, do you guys have any question based on a stay session or something? Mhm. Do you guys have any question related to yesterday's topic?
I have a question for Sai. For whatever you have shared in the PPT section for that Python related activities. So can you share that PPT also? Means whatever you have.
I'll be sharing the reference material for Python, okay?
Okay.
You can refer to that one. Once the model is completed, at the end, I'll be sharing some reference document. You can make use of it.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, so you can say still people are joining. Let's see. All right, so this is our day 10 of our session, and it's 10th of Feb. Hmm? All right, so today we'll continue with the rest of the topics. Like in our last session, we were discussing about some of the core concepts related to handling the variables, condition statements, right? And also we've seen how to prepare a Python console application projects, right? Through Visual Studio Code, were able to create it, right? And I was giving you some references also, like how we can able to manage those content, the variables, and various data items like list, tuple, dictionaries, right? And I think this was the last topic we were discussing the last session. So related to Python keywords, right? So what are all the keywords we use to create our Python scripts? Like in our variable declaration, we use something called Boolean values like true or false, and def is to create a define a function, right? Like we have statements for loop, right? So all these components are part of your Python keywords. Okay, Python keywords are the reserved keywords that can provide or convey some special meaning to the compiler. And this Python keywords are also based upon the libraries that you use. Like for example, tomorrow if you want to use Python to manage your Azure resources or AWS resources, right? Because I told you, right? So using Python, we can able to automate the AWS resource provisioning or Azure resource provisioning, any cloud service we can able to invoke. So if you want to work on such cloud resources, based upon the cloud resource, we have to import some libraries. Python libraries are there. So when you import that Python libraries is going to be closely associated to that particular service or a service provider, like AWS service provider or Azure service provider. And that will provide more set of keywords, reserved keywords. Like for example, if you're using AWS means we'll be using the terminologies like easy to instance, right? So that instance, easy to instance is a term that is used to refer the virtual machines in your AWS platform, right? So the same thing is what we called as a virtual machines while working in our Azure. So like this depends upon service providers, the keywords and the terminologies will vary. So it's all depends upon the opportunity and the scope of work we do. Even in real-time environment, it is not like we'll be working on all the libraries. Okay. So it depends upon requirement. Let's say if your project or the infrastructure is completely based on AWS means you'll be working on AWS related resources, right? Or if it is based on your what is it called? Azure means you'll be working on Azure related resource. So depends upon that, we'll be importing some libraries. I'll be showing you how to import libraries and all with some sample programs, right? So point here is you're not supposed to use these keywords as a variable name while using your program. And when it comes to the variable handling, the data validation, everything matters here, right? So the operators can be defined for that. So operators means it can be like an arithmetic operator, comparison operator, assignment, logical, bitwise, membership, or any identity operator. These are the various types of operators supported in Python. So it's all very basic things, okay? Like if you want to perform some arithmetic operation, we'll be using some arithmetic operators, right? Like addition, subtraction, other stuff. Similarly, if you want to work on any comparison operator, like if you use the if condition, if you want to compare two input values, whether it is greater than or equal to or less than equal to or equal to, like there are six comparative operators are there, like equal to, not equal to, less than or equal to, greater than equal to, or greater than less than. Like that, we have some set of comparison operators also we can use it in our validation. So in order to validate all your input parameters, we can use it. Similarly, there is something called assignment operator. Assignment operators are used to assign some value to the variable. Let's say you have a variable, and if you want to assign some value means you can use the symbol equal symbol, right? So the same equal to symbol you might have noticed in your if condition, like in a comparison operator. So if you use two equal to symbol, it is to compare two values. But if you use one equal to symbol, that means you're trying to assign a value to a variable, like a equal to 5 or a equal to 10. Similarly, we have something called plus equal to. That is something equal to a plus b. Correct. Like this, we can able to simplify the expressions and perform some arithmetic operations using this assignment operators as well. And the next thing is something related to your logical operator, where we can able to use and or not. If you want to maintain some complex conditions, like if you want to compare two values, like a is greater than b, also a is greater than c, right? So if you want to compare these two conditions, we use some logical operators. When you use and operator, it works if both the conditions are satisfied. If both the conditions are true, then only your logical operator and will be successful. If any one of that particular condition is incorrect, okay, that and operator will fail. Similarly, or operator, if A is greater than B or A is greater than C. Like that, we can able to compare two different conditions. So there are three logical operators and or not, which can be used to define some multiple conditions. And also there is another unique thing in Python, that is membership operators. So these membership operators are used to evaluate some number of values in a list. For example, consider I have a list of items and I just want to check whether a value is present in that list or not. So I can simply say A in that particular list. So A can be 5. If I validate 5 in the list, If 5 exists in the list, it will throw result true. Else, it will throw result false. Correct. For example, consider you have some set of users, okay, who's enrolled for DevOps training or ML training or AI training. So I just want to know the list of users who are involved or enrolled for AI training. So for that, I can use this membership operator, like user in AI training list. I can able to capture it. Correct. Most of the cases will be using it in the place of for looping. Like in your Linux also, you must have noticed for X in the list of variables. Like that, you can use it. Correct. And the next thing is about the identity operator. Identity operator means it depends upon the type of element. Okay, it's used to evaluate whether it is true or false. If the reference is present in both, point is same object. Means consider you have element. You want to compare if the element is numeric, if the element is alphabet or alphanumeric. If you want to compare such type or identity of that variable, you can use is or is not. For example, consider I'm receiving a value from the user. Like I want to receive a user ID, and I always expect the user ID should be numeric. So what I can do, I can simply say that variable is numeric or not. I can able to use is operator to compare the data type of that variable. Clear? So to compare the value of a variable, we can use the comparison operator. But to compare the data type of a variable, we can use identity operators. That makes a difference here. Correct? So identity operators and comparison operators. Like this, we have various types of operators supported in Python. And almost it follows the same methodology, like how we use in our regular scripting language. It is also same. Correct? And as a best practice, whenever we write any program, it is always recommended to use some comment lines. All the comments can be started with the hash symbol. That is as per the programming standard. Correct. So what does the need for comments means? Comments are used to explain the code. Like for example, whenever I'm writing any function, right, what the function is going to perform, what is the core functionality there, what are all the inputs required to execute the function, what will be the expected output, right? And where the function is getting invoked, what are the dependencies it has, all these things will be documented. That is what you call it as a self-documented scripts. So while writing any script, even as a DevOps resource, tomorrow you'll be writing some scripts to work on your Jenkins or Ansible or Kubernetes and all. So whatever the area you're going to focus, please ensure that you manage proper comments while writing a script, because tomorrow or down the line, after a month or two, if you revisit the program, you should be able to understand what you written there, right? For what purpose you written there. Or tomorrow on your absence, if someone takes the responsibility, if someone is trying to manage or enhance the script, they should be able to understand for what purpose they have written that particular script. So for all those purpose, we need to document it, and it's always recommended to use a hash there. Correct. So it is very much recommended to use it. Clear? So that is one thing. And here in this example, you can see we have declared two variables, A and B, with some initial values, and we just using the arithmetic operator to calculate sum of those two variables and printing the result. Like this, we can able to maintain some arithmetic operators. Right. And another interesting factor here is if you want to maintain some multi-line formatting. Let's say in your previous example, I was telling you to use hash to maintain your commented lines, right? But if you compare it with your C++ programming and all, right, there we use forward slashes, two forward. Instead of hash, you can use two forward slashes to maintain a comment line. If you want to maintain more than one line or multiple lines as a comments, you can use slash asterisk to start the comment line and asterisk slash is to end the comment line. Like that we can use in C or C++ in Java also we can use. Similarly in Python scripting, if you want to maintain multiple lines of script, you can use the symbol triple quotes. So just look into the scenario here. I just want to prepare a script. Okay, I just want to write a program. And here def is a keyword that is used to create any function in Python. So assume that we are going to create a function called intro, as like it is same as like how you created a function in your what do you call that Linux. You guys remember how we create functions in Linux? Yes, no? Guys, I'm audible. If you are speaking, I can't hear you.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So did you get a chance to work on it? Work with Linux scripting or functions in the last 3 days? I was an impression that you were covering all the Linux concepts and you're getting into Python now. Any issues there?
No.
No.
All right. It's okay. So here we have a function definition. Function name is intro, and we're just defining the function. And if you want to maintain one line of comment, we can simply use this hash symbol here. But if you want to maintain multiple lines of comments, it is always recommended to use the triple quotes like this. Correct. So that you can able to maintain multiple lines of your comments. That is always recommended. We usually do that while writing your thing, and it is something used considered as a document string. Like tomorrow, if you want, you can able to convert it to a document for your project. All right. And the next important thing is the indentation. This is another very important thing to understand while writing your Python scripting, because unlike your other programming languages, here we do not have something called curly brackets. If, let's say, for example, if I want to use if condition, I just want to compare if n mod 2, if it is equal to 0, I just want to print this message. Else, I want to print this message. So the syntax rule here is you can use if condition followed by the variable, the comparison operator, and the value. And if the condition satisfies, you're going to maintain some positive case, right? Percentage, here it is a mod function. N mod 2 means assume that n is one value. Let it be 10. And I just want to divide 10 by 2. Usually if you say 10 by 2, you'll be getting result as
5.
but I want the remainder. I don't want the quotient, I want the remainder. So this 10 mod 2 will always provide the remainder of this one. Correct. I'm not interested to capture the quotient. If I divide a number by 2 and if the remainder is 0, then I can consider it as an even number. If the remainder is non-zero value, I can consider the odd number, right? So like that, we can able to maintain some conditional statements. So here, if some condition satisfies, you are giving this output statement, right? Similarly, this is an output statement. So the block of these statements should be maintained with some indentation. That's what the requirement here. But if it is a Java program, right, we simply use curly brackets. Okay, using curly brackets, we can able to maintain it. So there, that indentation is not required. But here, indentation is mandatory. Got it? And it is not just applicable for if statement, whether you're using any function definitions or your loops, whatever the block of statement you want to maintain, it is always recommended to use your indentation here. Just give one 5 characters, just press tab, that's enough. Okay, that's enough to manage your indentation or block of statements. These are all some coding rules we should follow. Correct.
Yeah.
And similarly, there is something called conditional statements. It's all common, right? As I told you already in your previous Linux module itself, for any scripting or programming language, there are some entities that are common, starting from the data, variable handling, data types, operators, condition statements, looping statements, right? So there are some common entities are there. So that is what the next item in the list. So when it comes to the Python scripting language, here also we're going to use the condition statement. The very basic condition statement here is if statement. So if statement, it is used to test for specific condition. It will be having some block of executables. And we can use if else statement to maintain the default values also. Also, we can have some nested if conditions. So the logic behind the if statement is something like this. Let me clear the screen. Here it is. So if you look into the scenario here, I'm going to execute one if statement. Basically, it is used to test certain condition, whether it is true or false. Just look into this scenario here. I'm going to have a variable called num, and I just want to read the integer of that variable. So like this, we can able to maintain the function. Int is one function. So input is another function. Input of enter the number means this message will get printed and it will be waiting for my response. If I key in that value, it will just read the value into a variable called num, and I'm just validating it. So this is a very basic if condition. Hope I'm audible to all. This is a very basic if condition statement, which is used to validate your input number. Got it? Enter the number. If I enter 10, it divides the number by 2, and if the remainder is 0, it prints number is even. What if I enter any other value? Like if I say input value as 15, the output will be, the remainder is non-zero value, right? In that case, I'm not having any exception conditions here. So for that, we can use the else statement. Like this, we can able to use some examples you can consider here, like a equal to, I'm receiving some value. Like that, we are receiving 3 input values, and we're just comparing the value of a with b and a with c. If a is greater than b and a is greater than c, print that value is largest. If b is greater than a and b is greater than c, print that values b is larger. Like this, we can able to use the if condition along with the arithmetic operator and the logical operator. Sorry, comparison operator and the logical operator. So here we is comparing the value of a and b. Also, we're comparing with a and c. So if both the conditions are satisfied, this message will get displayed. Correct. So the general form of if statement is if certain condition satisfies, we give some condition. If the condition is true, it executes some block of statement. If the condition is false, it executes some block of statement. That is how we define the if condition. Question on this?
Why we're using this int? Because in the last class
It is a method. I'm not reading the value. I'm not declaring a value. It is a method used to validate your input. It is a method, special method in your Python. Because if I'm receiving any value means the value should be integer value. That is what the validation I want to perform. Otherwise, I need to maintain some additional logic to check whether data is input or int or not. Correct. So like this, we have a lot of functionalities, predefined functions that can able to validate the data. So that int is not to declare the variable, it is just to validate the input value. Got it?
Yes.
So in this case, if you can see here, we were using just a if condition. If anything goes wrong, we don't have any exception case. Like we don't have any else part here, right? We don't have any else or default condition, a default value. So to do that, we can use our else if statement. If else. So here, consider a scenario. I'm going to declare a variable called age. I just want to receive a value into the variable called age. And if the age is greater than 18, I can print this message. Else, I can print this message. Got it? So here, you need to understand how to receive the value to a variable and how to use that variable in your if condition using the comparison operator. And maintain some indentation and print the positive result. Else, print the negative or default value. So using if condition, if else statement, we can able to maintain the positive as well as the default value there. Easy. So always it is recommended to use if condition with else part, because every time we cannot expect the valid or possible input from the user, right? There might be some exceptions. So in that case, the flow of execution will be something like this. Once the condition is satisfied, it will execute the if block. Else, it will display the default value. Similarly, we have something called else if, because sometimes we need to compare with multiple conditions, right? More than one condition. So say for example, consider this scenario. I just want to receive an input value. If that input value equal to 10, I can print this message. Else if the number is 50, I can print this message. Else if the number is 100, I can print this message. Else I can say number is not equal to this one. It's any default message. So here the point is the understanding of how to use your if condition with else if. It is not like else if, it is ELIF. It is a syntax. Clear? If certain number of conditions, execute some if condition block, else if specific condition. Similarly, look into this scenario. Here we have a variable called marks. If marks is greater than 85 and marks is less than 100. So here we are going to maintain two different conditions using logical operator, right? So like this, we can able to use all possible options while validating your input. Is it clear? So here it will be like the one level higher when it comes to the implementation. So we have certain condition, if condition statement. So if statement 1 is true, it will execute the statement. Else if statement condition 2, else if statement 3. Like that, it just keep on validating this. If this condition satisfies, it won't execute these statements. It just executes statement, come out of if statement. If this is not satisfying, then we will check for this condition. All right. This is about your if condition statements. Any question?
Not on this looks, it's pretty much clear to me. But could you please explain that indentation once again? The
It is a
PPT.
basic programming rule for Python. Okay, like when we talk about Python scripting, it is, let's say in this case also, I was using some if conditions, right?
Uh-huh.
If certain condition satisfies, we have to maintain some indentation here. Like if you can see the scenario here, I just use the if condition. if this is a condition, if this condition satisfies, I want to use a print statement. So where I can start the command print, I cannot start exactly in the same column as where I started if condition, right? I should give 5 character space or indentation to the, just press tab key and maintain some indentation here. So the indentation denotes the print command or print function belongs to this if condition. Similarly, this print belongs to else part. Easy.
Yes.
And without giving the indentation here, we are giving this print, right? It means it just comes out of the if statement, and this print is not part of any if conditions there.
Okay.
Easy?
In any condition, it will print task complete.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. This
Okay.
print is not belongs to any of this because it is starting in the line column number 1, right? That matters. So always the block of statement that are associated. Let's say if you're using a for loop, you're using some conditions, right? So maintain some indentation and maintain it. So this statement, whatever you're maintaining within this indentation, it belongs to for loop. This is out of for loop. Easy?
Yes, now it's clear.
Fine. So these are some coding blocks or coding rules. Okay, we just have to follow while writing a Python scripting. Mm,
Got it.
like this, we have a lot of scenarios, a lot of examples. Okay, if you want, I can share some examples, some more examples. I
Yes.
have a separate PDF. Okay, I'll do one thing. I will share that PDF with you. Okay, today you can
Sure.
take your time and practice all these scenarios from the PDF. It'll be more interesting. And usually it is something I share with my development team. But anyways, you can just have a look. It might be beyond what you're going to learn.
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
I mean, what is given in your syllabus? Okay, not. All right. So another interesting factor in your what do you call this? Python is not just about programming. It also follows your object-oriented programming concepts. Correct? We usually consider C++ or Java as a OOPS programming language, right? Object-oriented programming language. So it is a concept that is based upon the concepts of objects. So let's say if you talk about any program, right? A program means it can be considered a collection of functions. But here, when it comes to your object-oriented programming, it is something based upon the objects. So to maintain the modularity of your program, we create some functions. But to maintain the function itself, we create some classes. Why? Because classes and the objects are the building blocks of your object-oriented programming. Classes are nothing but the collection of functions and the variables. Objects are just the instance of the classes. Let's say you have a class. For example, consider I have defined one class. Okay. And within this class, I can have some functions. Using define, I can have some functions here. I can have some variables. Got it? So what is a class now? Class is nothing but collection of functions and variables. So when we'll go for class means if you want to define any certain property of your module or a functionality, we can define some classes. And a class can have one function or more than one function, depends upon the use case. And once you define the class, if you want to invoke the functions that is defined within the class, we use objects. Right? So objects are the instance of the classes. It is just to invoke the functions and the variables that is declared within the class. So in a real-time environment, if you consider on developer's perspective, as a developer, they'll be writing a lot of business routines. Like they'll be writing lot of business logics and functionalities. Like if you're talking about the microservice architecture itself, that microservice architecture will be having various layers of a programming. Like we'll be having some front-end layer or application layer or business database layer and all. So each and every layer is going to define a number of functions. Sometimes the same function or same number of functions can be invoked any number of times. Possibilities are there. Okay, we can able to invoke a same function or set of functions any number of times. So practically, right, we cannot define the function each and every time you need. So what we do, we create one class with such functions, and just with the class name, we can able to invoke all the functions. Easy? So class is nothing but collection of functions and the variables that are required for that particular function. And using object, we can able to invoke such classes or the functions. Correct. So this is how the objects and the classes are related. So classes means you can consider as a blueprint for declaring and creating the objects. So when we talk about a class, it can have some functionalities as well as some attributes. Attributes is what we call as variables. Like for each and every function, what are all the variables you need, you can able to declare it within the class itself. That is a class. Now assume that I have created a function and I just want to invoke the function. For that we use object. So object is nothing but a class instance that allows anyone to use variables and methods from inside the class. So what are all the functions and variables? Like consider these are the functions and these are the variables we have declared, right? So if you want to invoke such functions, we'll be using the objects. Easy? These are the two important concepts that is associated with your object-oriented programming. And in addition to that, there are some concepts like we have something called polymorphism, inheritance, encapsulation, abstractions, all those stuff. So don't get confused all these terms. If you're part of DevOps profile for your lifetime, you never use this. But as a developer, if you want to survive on developer's perspective, definitely it's all mandatory. I'll just give you an overview of all those things, and I'll be showing you some examples like how to create a class and functions and all. Correct. So when I say object-oriented programming, the very first thing is your concept is something called as a class and then object. And apart from that, I told you there are 4 more topics, right? 4 more things like inheritance and abstraction, as well as we have something called encapsulation, polymorphism. So all these things are closely associated. Okay, let's say if I'm talking about inheritance, it allows any class to inherit the property of another class. A class which can inherit the property of another class. Say for example, I'm talking about inheritance now. Consider you have created one class C1, which is having some functions. Okay, we have some functions. Now, in this function, we have some properties defined, right? With some attributes defined. Now I want to create one more class, C2. The C2 is having some functions like define, I2, something like this. Now, the C2 is not a standalone class. It is going to inherit some properties of C1. Like what are all the functions you have in C1, it is going to utilize, it is going to exhibit those properties as well. So in this case, while creating the C2, I can use the reference of C1 here. Easy? So whenever the class is going to get inherited from the existing class, that can be achieved with the help of inheritance. Am I making it clear?
Yes, yes,
There are a
yes.
lot of scenarios. Okay, let's say you have a, a real-time scenario. Like if you talk about a function, any function you can consider. Got it? So this is a base version like v1.0. This function was created almost 2-3 years back. Now I want to enhance the function. If I want to enhance the function, whether I'll be creating altogether a new function or I will use the existing property and then making some new changes there. Whenever we talk about enhancement, it is going to have some additional features, right? It means it is going to hold the property of v1 as well as it is going to have some additional features. That's what enhancement, right? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So such thing is what we call it as a inheritance. While creating function 2, I'm not going to create this v1 features altogether as a new feature. I'm going to reuse it. So while creating it, I can inherit the property of function 1 and create function 2. So all the base functionalities will be same as like v1 version. And v2, what are the new features I want to introduce? I can able to introduce there. Even in my DevOps introduction also, I gave one very first example. Like if you want to enhance your functionalities, like a payment module. Initially, the payment module was made up of a cash payment or a card payment, right? Now, if you want to enhance with the UPI payment or online payment, as part of the UPI and online also, you'll be having these two features. So along with these two features, you're going to add two more features. That's what it means. It is not like we're not going to completely eliminate this process. So based upon the existing functionalities, whenever we go for any enhancement, it is always recommended to reuse the existing features that can be easily achieved with the help of inheritance. And next thing is about the polymorphism. Polymorphism means like how we can able to manage your functions, how we can able to exhibit your functions with different forms. Like for example, consider I have a function. I want to define a function called sum function. Okay. And I just want to have a variable a equal to 5, b equals to 5, and c equals to a plus b, and print c. So if I execute this function, what will be the output? Whenever I run this function, it always returns a value as 10. Correct? So what I can do means I can create another function with same name, but with some arguments like a comma b, like this. You see, so now I'm not going to hard code the value of a and b. Instead, while invoking the function, I can able to pass it as an argument. So based upon some runtime input, I can able to execute this function. So now the same function, but it is represented in two different forms. This is function without argument. This is function with argument. Similarly, you can have another form of the same function like sum a, b, c, and d. So it means I want to calculate d equal to a plus b plus c. So based upon these three input values, I want to calculate the sum of three numbers. So now in this case, function name is similar, but we have four different variables, right? So that is how we can able to represent the polymorphism in your OOPS concept, just to have a different form of function invocation, correct? And another important thing is your abstraction or encapsulation, we can say. So it is just to display only the most important functionalities required for the implementation. So when I say abstraction means it is what is a general term for abstraction, meaning for abstraction? Just a process of hiding the data details, right? It just abstracts, or it is just preventing the users to view the actual thing For example, consider if you have any computation machine, like you have a user login page. In this user login page, what are all things you are seeing here? You can able to find the username and the password field, and then some login button, something like this. So end users are allowed to key in the input value, and they are expected to click on the buttons, whether to proceed further or cancel, right? So once they enter the input value, and if they press this login button, internally there are a lot of process happens. It validates the data, it interacts with database, it queries the database, and then it will retrieve the data from database, and then it will present it to the end user. So all these activities are happening behind the process, right? Yes. But it's all completely hidden from the end user's view. End user will not have any visibility of what is happening behind the scene. He just enters the input and get the result. That's all. So what are all the things that is required for the end users? Only that much data, that much things has to be exhibited. Unnecessarily don't exhibit all the process that is happening behind the process, behind the system. That is what abstraction means. So that we are just going to narrow down the process. Unnecessarily, we should not give any additional information, or we are not going to restrict the access to any level. So what is exactly required? Highlight those details to the end user so that end user can able to stick to that process and complete the task. This will reduce a lot of manual errors. You see, even you can take your any vending machine or ATM machine, whatever it is, what is exactly required, that is what the end user will supposed to do. Unnecessarily, they will not give any of the additional inputs, right? Like this, we can able to use the concept called abstraction. And all these things, whether it is abstraction or inheritance or polymorphism or even encapsulation, right? All these things can be utilized in your classes. As well as there is another interesting factor called encapsulation. This encapsulation means, again, it is a process of packaging, or we use the term called bundling the process, bundling the objects. Okay. So it is like all the unique or like components will be packaged together or bundled together and execute as one unit of task. In fact, this is the basic concept behind your service definitions. Like whenever we talk about the microservice, we're just splitting the actual application to various microservices, right? So such microservices, one service is nothing but a collection of certain tasks. We are just bundling it. We're just packaging all those like tasks into one package and running it as a single unit. So the smallest unit of tasks that you run as part of application can be achieved with the help of your encapsulation. And while creating such encapsulations, a lot of analysis required. Why? Because here we are trying to package it. We are going to group it. So while grouping any set of tasks or the functionalities, we have to take care of a lot of external dependencies. Sometimes this function can be invoked by another function or another class, or sometimes the variables, whatever we use in the group, can be used by another functions or another class, right? So like this, there are a lot of shared components also will be involved. So considering all those things, only this encapsulation will be defined. Easy? So there are 4 important concepts apart from classes and object. If you want to maintain different forms of functions, we can use polymorphism. And inheritance means if you want to inherit the property of any class while defining a new class, we can use inheritance. And encapsulation means the process of packaging or grouping up of your functionalities to execute as a single unit of task. And then abstract means it is the process of hiding all the unwanted, entities from the user's view. Easy? Any question on this? 6
No.
items?
No.
All right. So I'll share some more examples now. Okay. So I think this is a project which we have created on that day, right? Like, okay. All right. So yes, I'll give you some examples I have. Let me pull those reference. Okay. So all the things we talked about earlier, it's right, how to declare a variable and how to manage your functionalities, right? So if you look into this PDF here, I'll be sharing this PDF with you people for your practice. Few functionalities, like it's all self-explanatory, okay? Python is a very simple language, okay? High-level language. Anyone who looks into the Python script, they can quickly understand what the functions or what the script is going to do, right? So on that perspective, if you go through this document, you can able to quickly understand what exactly we are doing there. Like in our last session also, we were using something called slicing operators and all, right? Remember, you consider S as a
Yes.
variable that is going to hold some string of characters, right? And I just want to print 3:8. So like this, we can able to maintain some slice operator to represent or print the value as per the desired option. You can able to verify it from your project itself. Like you can able to create your own Python project, and you can able to start validating your inputs from there itself. Let me open that project for you. Right. Right. So similarly, just look into the scenario and tell me what we are trying to achieve here.
Is it the page which you have opened, or are you trying to open something?
Right, the same one which I'm talking about now.
Okay, one second.
Hmm. So let me, if you want, I can create one more project here. I think this is the one which you are seeing on my screen, right? So if
Yes.
you can see my screen, we just created a project. If remember, we have created a console app project one in the last session. We have created a program one.python and program two.python. Remember? So I'm
Yes.
just trying to use the same project now. Okay, so let's say I have a variable like S1 and S2, and I just want to print the value of those variables using some slice operator, we can say. Got it? So now, if you can see this script here, we are using some functionalities, right? We have S1 is a variable name, this is a value. So I just want to capture the value from the third position, starting from 0, 1, 2, and 3. L starts at the third position, and from there, the length is 8. So 8 characters. So I just want to print this value. Similarly, there is another variable S2, and the date is %D, means I want to print the date, okay, on this particular format. I mean, this is a value actually, but I just want to represent this value in this format. That's it, nothing else. So any value, if
Hello?
you want to represent as per your input, we can able to change that representation by using some slashes and %D. Like this, we have certain scenarios. Okay, like we have some other functions also. Let's say, just look into this example. Can you tell me what we're going to achieve here with this? Random. Can you able to figure out what we're going to achieve here?
Get any random number between 0 to 10.
So here you need to understand one important thing called import. We are trying to import a library called random. It is part of your Python package. Guys, hope I'm audible to everyone, right?
Yes, yes.
I think one person is unable to hear me. All right. So this is going to provide a function called rand range, RAND range. It's the short form for random range. So random is a library which we are going to invoke, and we are just going to use a function with this possible input values. So this function is defined in this class. That's what you should understand here. And X is a output variable. So the output of this function, I want to capture in this variable X, and I want to print the value. So if I say 0, 10 means that is a range, right? If I want, I can able to change the range of values also. Like if I say something like this. So what it mean here? Can you understand the range now? So I just given this 6-digit number as the input range. Starting, this is a starting value and this is the end value. So between this range, including the starting and end position, I want to generate some random number. Like I can able to get this value. If I run this program again, I can get another set of random number in that range. Are you getting your point?
Yeah.
So like this, at any point of time, if you want to generate some random numbers based upon certain range, we can use this library, which can be imported into your Python program. So it involves a lot of logic. Okay, like if you want to create any functionalities, right, it is not that easy. So this is a function that is defined. If you can keep your cursor on this function name, you can see the function definition. The starting point is integer and stop point is int, and it is having a lot of steps to increment one by one. So the point here is you must have experienced some online applications which can generate some random numbers like OTP digits or something like that, right? For verification purpose and all. Have you
Yeah,
noticed?
correct, yeah.
So this is the logic behind that actually. So whenever you want to invoke, I mean, through your web application, if you want to generate some random numbers for OTP verification or kind of thing, this is like a soft token. logic can be executed from there. So this logic will be associated with your service. Like for example, through my Python program, pgm2.py, if it is invoking a class and for which class the function is invoked, that will be associated to that one. So on that particular moment, the random value, whatever get generated, it will get mapped with that service. And if that number matches, it allows the user to proceed further. So these are some logics, right, that we can use in a real-time environment to perform some user verifications or OTP, one-time password generations kind of thing. Hope we can read things now.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Like this, we can able to process it. Similarly, there are a lot of scenarios. Okay, like look into this example here. I'm going to have a number, input number, and I just want to print the number, right? So anything as per my need. Just example to demonstrate the print function. A function can have some constant value as well as some numeric variable, right? So we can able to print input Python or Ruby. What are the input the user is entering, I can able to print that value. So this is just the way how you can able to create some interactive programs. Like it is not just about creating your static program. The program, whatever you prepare, it can be an interactive program also. Interactive program means which can handle some user inputs, right? If you're clear.
Yes, sir.
So here in this case, if you can see this, I just have this variable number, which is going to read some input value and print it. In your Linux scripting, you should use a echo statement and then you should use a read statement, right? Two things we have used in Linux. But here we can able to use a variable with the input function, we can able to accept. So if I run the script again, sorry. You can see it is waiting for my input value. If I enter any input value here, the value is getting printed. Similarly, it is expecting the input value like Python or Ruby. If I say Ruby, it is printing the value. If I run this program again, it is expecting the input value and it is expecting the value, it is printing it. So now the point is, whatever the input I enter here, it is receiving the input and displaying it. But if you see the message, I'm expecting the numeric value, but I entered the string of characters, but still it is processing. So by default, your input method will not validate user input. If you want to validate the user input only, we use something called your if conditions. Some condition statements, like if the number is less than 0 or greater than 10, I can able to validate perform and then implement it. Similarly, I can able to use some variables like input variables, like password equal to raw input, enter the password. Say for example, this is another interesting thing I would like to highlight here in exercise 2. So if you can see the scenario, see, while maintaining if conditions and all, please maintain the indentations properly, okay? Otherwise, it will fail. Got it? Let's say if I use this statement here without indentation, if I use this if condition, see it is failing. It's showing it in highlighting red color. It is giving the error message also. Expected intended block, right? So ensure that when you write any script, you maintain proper indentation depends upon your scripting. Correct. So like this, we can able to maintain any number of input characters at any point of time and do some sort of validation there. And like this, you can able to work on your looping constructor also, like for loop. See, I have a list. C list is a variable name, and I just want to have some items there. So there are 4 items available, and using this for loop, I use C in C list, right? So this is a way how we can able to get the list of all the elements. You can able to print all the values of this list based upon this statement. So what type of statement it is? We just discussed about it, right? Remember, I talked about something called membership function, membership operator actually. Remember, so C in C list. So I can able to print all those values. Something like this. So what are all the variables or items you have in the list? If you want to print all the values, you can able to use that for loop. So it will iterate each and every element or item from the list and it prints the result. Got it? Similarly, as we discussed already, when we talk about your classes is a collection of functions and variables, right? So how we can able to create a function in your Python? So this is an example for that. So when you talk about the print is a predefined function, right? As like that, we can able to create the user-defined functions here. So df is used to create any functions in Python scripting. And as like your shell scripting here also, as per the programming standard, we can use the statement hash followed by that user bin env python 3. This defines which version of Python you're working on. Got it? It is not mandatory, but still, if you want to identify the interpreter, like which version of Python you're going to use, we can use this statement. It's a commented line. As per the programming standard, we usually do that. Because some functions like def, even the print and all, right, it is based upon the versions of Python which we use. So it is always recommended to maintain it. So if you look into this scenario here, I'm going to create one function called def, the function name sum, and the list. So list is just a variable. That's why I told you polymorphism, right? We have a function with an argument now. And sum is a variable within that equal to 0. Initial value of sum is 0. And for e in list, sum equal to sum plus e. So what are all the values I'm going to pass as part of this variable? I just want to calculate the sum of those numbers and print the result. So return is used to return the outcome of that function. So always a function will return a value. You see? Always a function will return a value. And please maintain proper indentation, because when you copy paste the content from your PDF, which I'm going to share, it will not have proper indentation. It is always recommended to maintain the indentations here. Like while looking into this PDF, you can see some indentation, readable form, right? If I simply copy paste this, let's say I'm just copying this and entering it here. See how it is represented? So it is completely your responsibility to follow this document and maintain proper indentation. Just give one tab, 5 character space. That's enough. This should be part of this. This should be part of this. Yeah, this is how. Easy? Fine. So this is what we have maintained here. So ultimately, we're going to create a function. Function name is sum. And this is a function definition. And this is a function invocation. Clear? Are you guys able to understand this, or any challenges in understanding this?
It is understandable, but a lot of practice is needed, to be honest.
Yeah, of course, it's
It looks
required.
easy, but it's not.
We are using list in the function. Then we are using my list to define 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Only
Um,
the format.
the logic here is, listen carefully. Here, this is a function name. If you want, I can put it from here. So this sum is a function name with an argument. List is just an argument. It's a variable you can consider. It's a function with an argument, right? And that can hold some value only at runtime. So what are all the values you're passing to this function, that you're passing it as through this variable, my list. Clear?
Yes.
So the variable name, whatever we define, it is just an identifier, I told you, right? Any variable that you pass, it is just an identifier. So this function is going to have some arguments, and that argument can be passed through this identifier. That's what we are maintaining here. Simple. So I have defined the function, and I just initialize the variable called sum that is equal to 0. And for e in the list, what are the list of items you're passing? I just want to calculate sum of that one. Sum equal to sum plus e. All right. So initial value of 1 plus the next value and return sum. So the logic behind this, each and every value that you're passing, it will be added with each other. So 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. That is how it just adds or create a sum of those values. Easy. So if I run this program, probably I'll be getting the result, something like for this input value. This is an output. If I change my input value, depends upon that, it will calculate. So here the idea is how to define a function and how to define some variables within the function. And if you want, you can able to maintain some looping construct also within the function and invocation. And maintaining the proper indentation while creating the function definition as well as looping also. Like say for loop is given here. The sum is this computation belongs to for loop. If I maintain the indentation here, it's invalid because the for loop should have some statement. So the statement belongs to for loop. And this return command belongs to the function, not to the for loop. Like this, it's all depends upon our logic, how many statements you want to maintain. Even a function can have another function also, nested function. That's also possible. Easy. Like there's a lot of examples here. You can explore a lot of things. Like if you can see the scenario here, the list variable, there's another example like states is a variable with these possible values. So I just want to check the value, like for state in states, print state. It will print all the values of that state. And this will print all the values. The entire list will be printed as part of this particular loop, for loop. There is another for loop in the same program that is going to again search for the state and state, but the condition is if state of 0 equal to m. So any state that starts with the character m, I want to print that value. So that is the logic here. So if you want, you can check the result as well. So it's all like string functions we are using, nothing else. Okay, so how we are managing your string functions and how we just, maintain the indentation of those things, it's all matters. And unnecessarily do not maintain the indentation because it's all captured at the end of your statement, because everything should be as a same line. Okay, it is not like a multi-line text and all. It's not possible here when it comes to your variable. So maintain proper indentation as per your need. Got it. So if you look into this scenario here, I just maintain a variable called states with some possible values, a group of elements or list of items, and for state in states, print state. Similarly, I want to capture this item also. So here in this for loop, we have this structure, programming structure like this. So what is the expected result here? I want the complete list of items as well as the item that starts with
M.
M. I think I lost access. Okay. Can you see this? I think only 2 letters that is starting with two states are starting with item M. Sorry, only one. So if you can see here, these are the whole list of items present in the list, and there is only one item that starts with M. That's what the last is repeating here. You can see M, right? So like this, using the string or index of that item, you can able to capture or filter out the elements. So it's a very basic logic. Okay, any person name that starts with L or any department starts with I, like that we can capture the results. You see? Any question? So like this, you can able to manage the functions. We have a lot of examples related to dictionaries. Like on the day I gave you some examples, right? Like set of operators, set, dictionary, tuple, list. So I have examples for all these things. Okay, like just the interpretation varies. Like if you're talking about dictionary, means the variable or item should be enclosed within curly brackets. Correct? If it is a tuple, it should be enclosed using the parenthesis. If it is a list, it should be enclosed using square bracket. Like that depends upon the type of item, we can able to manage your resources and use your looping for the same. Like this is a list of items which is going to get added to the dictionary, right? And then print the value. So initial key and the, because dictionary is composed of keys and values, right? So this will be the key and this is the value. Like that, you can able to maintain the key value pairs using your dictionary. Similarly, if you want to maintain a tuple, you can maintain it. And ultimately, what is the purpose of maintaining some list of items or array of item means the scope of this item is within the program. Tomorrow, if you come out of the program, you cannot retain the data. So in order to retain data permanently, we can go with the file system. So Python supports a file concepts, actually file handling concepts. Like consider I have a file called test.py. If I want to read the entire file or read all the lines from the file, I can use a method called open. So open is a function that is used to open this file, and that file will be captured with the help of this object f. So the file name is a variable that is going to hold the actual name of the file. And using this with open function, I can able to identify the file name and open the file, and the data items of the file will be handled with the help of an object called f. And lines equal to f dot read lines. Read lines is a function. So this will get iterated. Okay, till the end of the file, it just reads the content and it keeps on printing the value. So that is how we can able to perform the sequential read from a file. Similarly, if you want to perform some write action, if you want to write some content to the file, you can consider this example. See here, f is a variable. I can able to use open function to open the file in write mode. If you simply open the file, it will be opening the file in a read-only mode. But if you use the option W, you can able to write the content of the file. So f dot write the content, and f dot close, just to close the file. So using your file operations, we can able to open the file, read, write, and then close. Right means it is also used to add more changes to the existing file. You see. So tomorrow, as a DevOps engineer, whether you'll be working on such file concepts means no, definitely not. It is something used by the developers to maintain the flat files. But tomorrow, if you get an opportunity to work in Python as a DevOps resource, you'll be using some API calls. Promptly, you'll be using some dictionary kind of items, because when we talk about any API calls, the data output will be generated in the form of JSON file formats or YAML file formats. So the content type will be in the form of JSON, which is nothing but keys and values. So that will be handled through your dictionary, and which can be permanently stored in a JSON file. So it will be like, consider I'm just giving a call to one endpoint URL or API service. So whenever we invoke any API, that API will produce some result, right? So that result, whatever the API is going to produce, that result will be stored in a JSON file. We have to capture the result and store it in a JSON file. So for that, the dictionary, handling dictionary in Python is very much essential there. Apart from that, we never work on any file or any flat files as like reading or writing the content. We never do that. There won't be any use case for DevOps or any process automation workflow. But handling JSON file is very important. Right. So like this, there are a lot of examples. If you find time, you just go through this. Otherwise, it's fine, no problem. So there is something called time also. There is a global, right? Date and time. Like in my previous case, I use %d for formatting data, right? Like this, we can able to import this class, and the time now is a variable that is going to capture the local time, and it can print the result. Like on any of your web page or any other application, the system time will be running on the website or the web application or any desktop application, right? So you can able to use this function to display that time. We can able to run the timer also, right? And based upon all these concepts, if you approach your classes, so as I said, class is one of the object-oriented programming concept, right? And it is a collection of functions and variables. So consider a scenario. We are going to create one class called website, and we have some number of functions defined in that class. So as I said, class is nothing but a collection of functions. And once the functions are defined, how you can able to invoke those function means by using the object. So object obj is a variable, website is a class name, and I'm just going to refer this URL, something like this. Similarly, the show title, like what are all the functions we have defined, this show title, show location, all these things are the functions within the class, right? So we can able to maintain multiple objects for the same class, and it can be invoked any number of times. All right. Like this, we can able to maintain some inheritance, polymorphism, all those things based upon the same class functions, but it's all depends upon the use cases, like how we are going to work for which case you're using. So on DevOps perspective, if you want to approach Python means, it is purely depends upon your use case. So I'll give you some scenarios. Promptly, we'll be using Python to invoke some API calls for any third-party tools or services, to invoke some CLI commands or API calls based upon the cloud service resources. Like if you want, consider I have a AWS resource. I want to give a call to my AWS storage service like S3. I want to store some files, or I want to read some files from my S3. Or I want to create a new virtual machine on AWS cloud. I want to stop AWS instances. Consider I've created 100 virtual machines. I want to stop all the 100 VMs, and I want to automate it. So using Python, we can able to achieve it. There is a library called Boto3 library. Boto3 is a library, as like how you import your time library, we can able to import Boto3 library. That library is promptly meant for handling your AWS resources. So through that library, we can able to manage your or work with any AWS. So it will be integrate with the AWS CLI and APIs. Correct. So instead of relying on your typical shell scripting, you can use this Python Boto 3 to interact with the AWS resource. You see, similarly, we have something called Azure RM. We can able to use it for Azure resources. Like there's a lot of resources available there. Depends upon the requirement, you can make use of it. Correct. So these are some building blocks that helps to actually prepare your Python console applications. Like how you can able to write a console application to receive the input, handle the input, read some local files, write some local files. Correct. This is one scenario. But apart from that, using Python, we can able to prepare some web applications also, right? Like we talked about Python console application and then Python web applications. So when I say Python console application, right? What are all the concepts we covered so far? It's all used to develop some Python console application, like a desktop application, we can say. Got it? So using the concepts like list, looping construct, condition statements, classes, objects, all these things are used to develop some desktop applications. So to create such desktop or console application, you no need to have any other additional no components. But when it comes to your web application, Python needs a web application server. Or yeah, server. So we have a lot of web application servers supported for Python. Promptly we'll be having something like Django framework, web application framework, or we have something called Flask. You can say like Flask or Django. We can use it. Correct. Most of my .NET web applications like ASP.NET applications, I use Django framework for developing those applications, right? So Python also supports that. So what is the need for this web application server means? Like you guys are aware of Tomcat? Tomcat web application server?
No.
Hmm? Or we have something called HTTPD, or Nginx, right? So these are all some web application servers through which we can able to invoke some web application. Let's say, for example, as a developer, I have created one web application. Web application means like e-commerce web application. So once that web application is created, how that application can be tested, how the application can be executed means by using this application framework. So as a developer, in my development environment, I will prepare this web application. And once the application is ready, I can deploy to my target environment, like my testing environment for the testing. And in the test environment, I just have this web application server to run that application. Similarly, in the production environment, in the live production servers also will be having this web application servers to execute that applications. So how we can able to configure this web application, how developers will configure this web application server on their local machine. That is what the next important item to discuss. So when it comes to your Python, you'll be promptly using this one. And apart from that, if you want to work on Tomcat or HTTP means it is meant for something like a Java-based web applications. right? For your Tomcat and HTTPD and all, meant for Java-based applications. Like you'll be familiar with Angular, Node.js, right? Ruby. So for such applications, we can use your HTTPD Nginx kind of web application service. Correct. So next, I'll show you how to create a web application using Python. How to create a web application using Python. So don't worry, this is also on developers' point of view, we're going to learn. As a DevOps resource, we never create any such business applications. So the point here is, first thing is your Python project. So as like your console application, like we have created one separate folder, console app project one. Like this, we can create one project folder, and within the project folder, you can have your Python program. Correct. And once you create the Python program, it is just a business logic, which can have your Python scripts. It can have some Python classes, functions, variables, or libraries. Any business logic you can create in that Python program. But apart from that, there's something called web resources. Or we call it as the web components. Web component means it will be in the form of HTML, right? Your CSS, there's cascading style sheet, and then it can have some other scripts also associated to that, like JavaScripts. Anything is fine. So all these things are considered a web component. So this web component should be prepared within the templates. So template is a folder that is part of your project folder, main project folder. Within that main project folder, we create a subfolder called templates, and within the template, we maintain all our web components. So this Python program, it is going to hold your business logic. And this is going to hold your front-end logic. Correct. All your front-end design, everything can be maintained with the help of this template. So this is how your any web application project components will looks like. Easy. So I'll just show you a small example how the development team will prepare this web application components along with some HTML or web application resources. So
Loksai, with front end, you mean to say user interface?
yeah, the HTML page, whatever you're seeing, right?
Okay. Okay.
So please understand this folder structure. Your project folder, within that you can have some Python program for business logic, and there will be a templates folder where we can have your HTML pages, something like this. Now, what you're going to write within that app.py, how you going to write that? That is what the thing. So here, in addition to your Python script and other stuff, we have to prepare our project folder. Okay. So first, let me create one project, and then I'll execute the statements one by one. Okay. So let's create one folder first. Okay. I'm just giving a step-by-step execution here. To develop any Python web application, first open your Visual Studio Code and create a project folder. Let the project folder be my web app project, for example. If you want, I can start a new project here. So first step is to open your Visual Studio Code and create a project folder there. So let me open a new folder. So from this level, if I open the new folder, it will take me to the file system. I think in a last session, we have created this PL folder, right? Python project. So I'll prepare one more folder here. My web app. Okay, let me select this one. That's it. So my web app is a folder. It is my project folder, which I just prepared. And within that folder, I want to create one Python program. So let me go to this folder and create one Python program like app.py. That's it. So in my previous example, I was just creating the program to prepare some console applications, right? So we can create a program and save it with .py, and using this console, using this terminal, I can run that program for any simple console applications. But when it comes to your Python web-based application, you can create same Python program as a business logic. But the point here is we have to configure our web application server. Which web application server you want to configure, you have to install it first. Python, when you install Python, by default, the web application server will not be part of the package. Got it? Like Django framework or Flask, by default, it won't be available when you install Python. You have to explicitly install it. So just go to your project folder and click on the terminal and click on new terminal. So now you can see the new terminal has been opened. It is something pointing to my project folder, right? So your first and foremost activity is once you create a folder, you have to install your web application framework. So in our case, we are going to install Flask as a web application framework. If developer are interested to use Django, means they can use Django. PIP install Django, they can install. So let's install this Flask web application framework. In the project folder, just do this. Okay, PIP install Flask. See, in my case, I think it is already installed. Requirements already satisfied. It is already installed in my machine. And it is even the latest version also available. If I want, I can even upgrade it. The latest version available is 25.01, but I have installed 23.2 something long back. So it's okay. There is no problem in using the previous version. But in your case, when you run this command, it will install the latest version of your Flask web application framework, which includes all these components. Easy. I have documented here, okay, for your reference. You can make use of it. And once this web application framework is installed, you can create that Python program. And before you give your program definition, the important thing is your HTML components, because when it comes to your web application, the resources are very much important, right? The HTML or web resources. So you have to create one subfolder under the root directory. This is my root directory of my project. Here you can find an option to create a new folder. The first one to create a new file. The second option is to create a new folder. Just click on the new folder option and give the folder name as templates. Here the coding standard is the folder name should be exactly same. Templates means it's in small case. And as of now, this folder is empty. Okay, so what you can do, click on that folder and add a new file. Let me give the file name as sample.html, for example. So all your HTML or web application components will be maintained in this templates folder only. Easy. So now if you look into the folder structure, under my root directory of my project, I have my application Python business logic. and then the templates folder. Within the templates folder, I have a HTML component. Easy? Any question on this part?
No.
Hope all are listening, right? All are clear with this, right?
Yes, clear.
Yes.
Okay. So maintain this component. Now let's give the definition. I just created a simple empty file, right? So let's add some HTML scripts there. Like I already have some HTML components. Let me add the same. Assume that this is something provided by a developer. Where is it? Let me save this. It's my simple HTML file. I just want to save this in my sample.html file. And then app.py. In this Python script, I'm going to write the business logic. So this is a business logic which you're going to write there. So what this logic is going to do means it is going to invoke or import the Flask web application framework which we installed. It is going to have some predefined functions, like Flask is one function, right? Through which it can able to bind your application with your host. And it is going to have the rendered template also. The template means your HTML homepage. Sample.html is a file which I created in the templates folder. So this is what my homepage of this web application, which I want to execute. And it is going to invoke a function like app run function. So it means when I save this program, and if I start the web application server, automatically this application will be up and running in my local machine. So how to start this? As of now, we just prepared the program, your HTML design, and then your Python script that is to invoke your front end. We just saved it. So now the next step is we have to start this web applications framework, because it is common for any web application server, right? Tomorrow, if you work on your Tomcat, maybe once you start with Jenkins module, I'll show you how to set up your Tomcat server and all. How to set up Nginx server, I'll show you in the upcoming modules. So any web application server you install, it should be started to make your application live. So once your script is ready, the next step is you have to set that application to your Flask web application framework. So here's the command: set Flask app equal to sample. Correct. So once you set this, you can able to simply go ahead and start that one. So to start that, we use a command python -m. The module is execute using a Flask web application framework. Run this command on your terminal. See here, as soon as I execute this, you can see it is running on the host in my local host machine 127.0.0.1 500 port 500. So remember, the Flask web application framework runs in port 500. Sorry, 5000. It is a default port for your Flask web application server. So it is up and running now. Can you see this? Now what you can do, you can use this URL in your web browser. Go to your web browser and you can enter that URL to access your web page. So this is a simple web page which we just created in our content here. Small example. So this can be it's just a static web page, but in real-time environment, it can be a dynamic web page, can be a login page or user registration page or any e-commerce application page, whatever it is. Easy. Any question on this? So as a developer, the point here is, as a developer, in my dev environment, I have configured my web application framework using Flask, and I have prepared my application logic along with my web components. So this is what usually any full stack developer will be preparing their HTML components, their application logic, everything on the same project. And before they promote the changes to a higher environment, they'll be testing it in the local dev environment. So that is what we are doing now. Once you find this is successfully executed, you can promote this entire project to your source code repository. And from there, it can be promoted to the target environment for further testing and deployments, right? So now my server is up and running. This Flask web application server is up and running
Look,
now.
say just a quick question.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So here you have been using internal CSS, right? So when we are going for an external one, so there will be two templates. One is for sample.html and another one will be a CSS file. So when we are executing this, how will we do then?
It depends upon the service configuration, right? How the
Yeah,
service is getting configured, how it is invoking the service.
right. But in app.py also we have to render the same, right? Like
It
here
can be,
when you
it
have,
can be the master file. No, we can enter the master from here, and that will
okay,
give in turn call to the service subservice.
right, okay,
This is just a function. This defined sample is one function that is rendering the template of sample.html,
right,
right? If you have one more
mm-hmm.
template, invoke another function, create another function, invoke it,
Right, okay,
right? So it's all depends upon the services which you invoke. That is also depends upon service flow.
understood.
Correct. So this is just to understand how the web applications are created using Python and how we can utilize our web application framework Flask to execute a web application. All right. So I'll do one thing. I'll be sharing this entire content with you. This is about your web application using Python, and remaining things will be meant for your console applications. I'll be sharing this PDF as well. Okay, so wherever possible, you can practice it. And it is not mandatory to focus on these Python concepts, because tomorrow, once you get into the real-time environment, the implementation will be completely different. Correct. On DevOps perspective, I'm saying we never create all those things. This is just for your knowledge or awareness. Same way, tomorrow, once we start with our Jenkins module, I will show you how to prepare a Java-based web applications using Maven tool. It can be a Spring Boot web application framework. So using Spring Boot web application framework, how we can prepare our Java-based web application and do the builds and deployments. But that will be based upon your automation through Jenkins. We'll see how to automate it. Easy? Any question? You can ask me now. You guys have any question here?
No, look, sir. We will go with this document and then we will come with you.
All right. So if you're good with this, then the next item in the list is about your version control system using Git. That is where our actual journey starts, our DevOps journey. What are things we discussed so far related to Python and Linux and all, just like the fundamentals, okay? So the next topic in the list is about your version control system using Git. So I strongly recommend people to focus more from this area, because if you want to highlight or project yourself as a DevOps trained resource, you'll be actually getting questions from this module. On day one itself, I told you, right? Like how we use our CI/CD, your various stages of DevOps, starting from continuous development. Remember, starting from continuous development,
Yes.
continuous integration, continuous delivery deployment. So in each and every stage, we work on some DevOps tools. Like for example, as a developer, they'll be promptly working on the dev environment to develop the source code. And once the source code is ready, it has to be committed to their source code repository. So source code repository is what we're going to learn as part of your version control system, like GitHub. So it means consider as a developer, I have prepared the source code. The source code is present in my local machine now, right? So how I can able to promote it to my higher environment? For that, I need to perform the automated builds. Tomorrow, if I want to package it using containers, I can use Docker to package this application. So for that, I need to promote to my build environment. I have to build a Docker image. And from there, I'll be promoting test environment, right? So for all these things, as a developer, once my code is ready, the first activity is I have to publish this code to my source code repository, right? Here also you can see something called source control, like publishing it to GitHub. If I want, I can directly publish my entire project to my GitHub repository from here itself. It is possible. But before we do that, we need to understand the concepts behind this version control system. That's what we're going to learn in the next module. So for the deployment of any web-based or console-based application, builds and deployment, we have to version control the source code in the source code repository. So here we'll be understanding about what is version control system and what are the different types of version control system and how Git is going to add value to manage our version control source code. What are the core concepts of your Git? Everything we'll discuss in the upcoming sessions. And once we complete all the core concepts of your version control system using Git and GitHub, I'll show you how to integrate GitHub with your Visual Studio Code. So this is how we have prepared this. Like it is a continuation. Like from your IDEs, because I told you on my very first session itself, using this IDEs, using this continuous development approach, developers are recommended to use some IDEs. Why we use IDE means once the source code is ready, using this IDE itself, we can able to directly commit the code to the source code repository. It can be integrated there. So that is the idea. So on that perspective, finally, we'll see how to integrate our changes to the GitHub repository using Visual Studio Code. I'll show you how to integrate your GitHub repository with your Visual Studio Code and do some code commits and push events and all. Easy? Any question?
No, got it.
So from tomorrow onwards, I expect everyone to be on time because it is not about joining the session. Join on time. That is very important. So 8 p.m. IST, right? 8 p.m. No?
Yeah.
8 p.m. IST will start the session. So please be on time and stay focused. I'll be sharing a lot of things related to interviews as well as a lot of things related to your core topics as well. So your actual journey starts from tomorrow. Got it? So you have another 5 minutes time. If you have any question, please let me know now. Based upon your Python or Linux or DevOps intro. People who joined late, I think some of you joined during the middle of the training, right? Last week end or mid of the last week. So really a chance to go through my previous day sessions, class notes and recordings.
Yes.
So is that understandable or do you guys have any question there?
Yeah, up to now that was fine actually. And while coming to today's session, you have built a Python program, right, to for that web application. Can you please explain that logic once again?
You mean this one?
App.py. Yeah, yes.
This one, right? App.py is
Yes.
what you're saying, right? See, here we are creating this web application using Flask web application framework, right? Which we have installed. That's what I showed you. First, we have to install this Flask web application framework, which will provide you some set of classes and functions to interact with your web application server. So through your Python program, you can able to interact with that web application server. For that, your program should first include or import that Flask libraries actually. Correct. So from
Okay.
this Flask web application server, we are going to impact this Flask library, and using this Flask library only, we can able to identify the application to start. Correct.
Yeah.
And then this rendered template, it is something used to identify your HTML resources or web resources, because to run any web application, we need a web resource. So that is defined under a function called sample, and is going to return the render template function identifying the sample.html. So if you noticed here, we just specify sample.html, but it is present in the folder called templates.
Yeah.
So what it means, for this Flask web application framework, the resource directory name is templates all the time. It will always pick up the HTML resources from the templates folder. If you give any other folder name or any other subfolders, you have to give the folder name completely here. Something like this, you should give.
Yeah.
Got
Got
it?
it.
But it is not recommended as part of your Flask application framework. Use proper templates directory. Within that, maintain all your HTML components.
Okay.
Right? Now, this template, whatever we have here, it is present in your templates folder. But Flask web application framework, it is something using your Python program to invoke it. Right? So where that is present means it is applicable in your applications root directory. So from this root directory, it is going to identify your sample or HTML folder, this templates folder. And once you start this application service, like here I use a command called this one, set Flask app equal to sample. So I'm just setting this sample application to this Flask web application framework. And then this is a command to actually run this module, Flask module. So it is just to run that web service. It is up and running now in this port 5000. Still it's running. So whenever this service is up and running, the application which you set to that service will be available for access through this port number. If you want to cancel it, just give Control C. Control C to quit this. See, it just ends. Right? Page not found error will be there.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. Got it.
Correct. So this is how we integrate our web applications framework with your Python application. Easy?
Okay. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Fine now. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll be sharing this entire content. I think it is your repository, right? PL. Mm. Yes. In addition to that, you can find a separate PDF file for your practice, Python program practicing. Got it? So any other question?
Where is that PDF?
Yeah, it will be available in the same folder. The
Okay.
PDF, what I'm saying, right? You can see in the same Python folder,
Got it.
you can find the PDF. But while using the PDF, it is your responsibility to maintain proper indentation, okay, for each and every statement. Otherwise, you'll throw an error.
Got it.
Fine. Any other questions from anyone? It's all understandable or like any issues?
Uh, for me, it's little complicated. Not little, it's pretty complicated for me because I do not belong to the technical background. So all these terms, languages, everything is very
Yeah, it comes by practice. Yeah, don't worry.
yeah.
On day one, we can't expect a complete thing, but once you start practicing and once you get into your actual project, right, you will be able to manage it. That's not a big deal.
Mm,
It's for everyone, okay? Everyone who is into this for very first time or a first day, it looks strange. It is not difficult actually, but it's strange,
correct.
right? So once you start practicing, it will be easy for you to manage. Don't worry. And I strongly recommend don't give too much importance on this Python module for now. Focus on Linux first. That is a priority because once we start with our Git module, right, from tomorrow onwards. So tomorrow, while working on this Git module, I'll be using most of the Linux commands, whatever we used. So tomorrow, your first priority is before you join tomorrow's session, I strongly recommend to go through all my Linux fundamentals,
Got it.
starting from your file management. At least focus on the file management tomorrow. That is
Mm,
required for your Git module to work on. Once we start with Jenkins module, you will be needing your file management, package management, as well as your user management, access management, everything. So tomorrow, your priority is to focus on file management, understand all the file related commands, what we used, like how to create a file, how to give access to the file, right? Listing the content, checking the creating directories, navigating from one directory to another directory, using VA editor. So just focus on this part tomorrow before you join the session,
sure.
so that it will be easy for you to work on the Git module. Easy?
In Git, we will be just using Linux, not Python.
Yes, it will be based on Linux only.
Okay, perfect, perfect. And
Yeah, I'll
one
be
more thing.
sharing the bash scripts also, don't worry. Trupti. Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah. What is the question?
Yeah, the question is when I connect to the Linux EC2 instance for Ubuntu, uh, that first line starts with that. I think that we call that tiddle sign and then hashtag,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you call that that entire line is called as bash command,
It's a bash terminal.
bash terminal.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a terminal which is used to run some bash commands.
So tiddle and hash is bash terminal, and there is one more tiddle and that
There is a
backslash.
shell terminal.
Backslash is shell terminal.
Yeah.
Okay, I was confused between these two terminologies. Thank you.
Yeah. Don't worry on that as of now. If since you're completely new, don't get distracted. First, focus on this file management for tomorrow's session. Gradually, you can able to practice all of the things one by one. Okay.
Got it.
Let's go step by step so that it's easy for you to manage the things.
Correct. Correct.
Hello.
Mm,
Yeah.
Loksai, the other day I tried practicing this remote connection, establishing connection between two virtual machine in the sense two EC2 instance.
Okay.
Okay. So the what is happening with me is the first time I am able to establish the connection by creating that SSH keys and copying it and pasting to the target server. The thing is, first time I'm able to establish the connection. After certain time, when I tried connecting the same, it is showing some error. Could not identify the host name, something like that. SSH could not able to establish connection like that. You got my question?
Are you using a public IP address or private IP address for connection?
Public.
That's a problem, right? So, public IP is not a constant IP address actually.
No. Sorry. I thought you asked about that keys.
Key, no,
Public
no.
key I have used. No, actually private key only I have used. The thing
Mhm.
is, for the first time, I'm able to establish the connection. Okay. After a
Uh,
certain time, like 30 minutes later, when I tried doing the same, it is showing 1 minute.
Maybe reboot and try again, okay? Because there might be some connection issue, right, on the same terminal.
It is saying as could not resolve host name. Could
Yeah,
not
on the
resolve host
same
name.
terminal. You're using through MobileX term, right?
Mobile external, correct.
So in MobileX term, right, if you idle for some time, your connection will be dropped actually.
Okay.
Correct. So just
So
press R to restart.
restart.
Okay.
Correct,
Or you
correct.
can
Correct.
establish a connection again. That should be fine.
Okay.
You'll
No,
be losing
actually,
that connection. It
actually,
means the
yeah,
cache,
yeah,
whatever it maintains, right? Everything will be cleaned up. So you have to reconnect so that it will get resumed.
correct. Three options it will show, like R for restart and
Yeah, just
start,
press R.
S for
Press R for
start.
restart. That
Yeah,
should be
yeah.
fine.
I did that. I did that. Actually, I did that. But I don't know when I searched it online also, it is saying some DNS mismatch due to that might be happening like that.
No. That is it's
Uh-huh.
true, but thing is that what it mean, your MobiX term is having that issue. If you want, you can able to enable it, but just press
Okay.
R to reconnect anytime.
Reconnect. Okay. Got it.
All right. So any other question, guys? Are good or? All right, guys. If you don't have any other question, then shall we close this call? Shall we connect tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
All right, then. Thank you. We'll connect tomorrow and please be on time. Okay. Thank you all. Bye.
Yes.
Thank you.